Welcome to another new episode. And today we're talking to Shane, who is selling on Amazon and teaches people how to sell on Amazon. Today we're going to explore the differences between selling on Amazon, where you don't really have to talk to people, and teaching the same stuff to other people, where you're actually dealing with people and where you build out the whole business with closures and a bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, thanks for having me here. What do you think about the whole setup?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invite. The setup is absolutely unbelievable, to say the least. But yeah, I mean, I'm just happy to kind of have a conversation with you and talk a lot about the Amazon world.
Yeah, all right. Let's do something that most people don't do. We're not going to start with your story. We're going to save that for the end, and we're going to get into the nitty gritty of like all the marketing stuff. So, first of all, you're teaching other people how to sell on Amazon as well. I'm really curious how that was for you to transition from kind of like, I guess, being in your basement, grinding, selling on Amazon, to like putting yourself out there. You grew on social media and you're teaching people there. How was that transition like to go from, anonymous, making money with Amazon, to teaching people how to make money with Amazon and actually dealing with people all the time?
Yeah, and it's actually quite a funny story because growing up, I was so introverted. I didn't necessarily like to put myself out there to other people, but when I started my Amazon business, when the pandemic hit, it was actually quite natural transition just because I started just sharing my stories on Instagram. I just kind of had no intention of really teaching other people. I wanted to just show my friends, family, what I was doing. And slowly as time progressed, I was very consistent with my results, posting. A lot of people started to reach out to me saying that they paid, $10,000 to a certain person and didn't get anything out of it, or was filled with empty promises.
Yeah.
And for me, from that perspective, like I started to realize that there's a big gap in the education space, especially with e-commerce to be specific. So what ended up happening is for me, like as these people started to reach out, I'm like, you know what? I'll build a free guide. And then as I had the free guide, people started to ask more in-depth questions.
Yeah.
So then I moved to Tulum for about 6 months. And just took all my time and energy towards building this program, which is Leading Digital Ecom. And here we are today, 511 students later.
Got it. So let's go back a little bit to when you started. Did you immediately start sharing your results on Instagram when you started? So from the start, like how Gary Vee says it.
Literally from the get-go. And I literally have the old stories from when I first posted in 2020. And I just literally set up my phone and I put it on a time lapse, and it was just me doing product research I lived with my parents at the time in my bedroom. And
was the gangster bedroom or like?
Well, I mean, it's
nice
where a lot of magic happened, I guess you can say, to say it lightly. But, it was just kind of like, I didn't care what people thought just because it was during a recessionary period. So I was kind of desperate at that point.
Yeah.
So I just filmed anything and everything, and slowly but surely the results just came after that.
Got it. I mean, it's really interesting that you mentioned it, that you documented the journey from scratch, because that's how I always tell people, like, hey, if you're looking for someone that's going to run your ads or it's going to be your mentor, your coach, like look if they actually have a track record, like if they have not been posting for like 6 months. And that's also what you briefly mentioned. There's a lot of people that promise a lot of stuff that don't really deliver. Like, I don't know if you were checking your competitors or something, but how do you think people that are looking for like, someone that can run their ads or they can get coaching from, whether that's, how to make money or just to improve themselves, what are the things that you would look for or like would recommend them looking for to kind of avoid getting, tricked by a fake guru who doesn't know what they're talking about and is actually living in his mom's basement, not making any money and just trying to coach and make money like that?
Well, it's really simple, and this can be universally applicable to any niche, any industry that you do want to get into, any business that you want to start, or any service or person that you want to hire. So first, you obviously have your goal, right? Whatever your goal is. Let's just say hypothetically, I want to run ads at a profit, or I want to be able to make $10,000 a month, whatever it might possibly be. You have your goal, and then second to that is you have to understand, like, is this person going to give me the highest percentage of likelihood of me being able to achieve that specific goal? Right? And what that will come through is in two different forms. One, an undeniable stack of proof that they've been able to help many different people in a similar position that you're in right now, and get a transformation that they want to be able to achieve. The other side to that is obviously guarantees. Right now, guarantees can only really be ever offered if someone does have the experience and knowing that what they teach actually works, right? If you can be able to, if you've been running ads for a long period of time and you know that 100% you can guarantee, 100 new book calls within an X defined time period, that makes sense because you have the proof, you have the experience with it. And by having those two things, it kind of puts a lot more people at ease. Like I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee for a lot of people that come through the program.
Is that conditional, or what are the...
It's just you got to go through the course, right? You just got to go through the process of actually watching the videos, going through the mentorship process. And if you do that, it's going to work.
So you're saying that if they go through the course, they watch all the videos, which you can check in Kajabi, and they don't like it, within 90 days, they can ask their money back?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's a pretty strong guarantee.
But think about it this way, right? Like, who in their right mind would not like making money?
Yeah.
Right? Like, a lot of people come to me like, well, I don't know if I'm going to like it. I just say, look, trust the process. And it literally doesn't happen when they hit $10,000 a month. It happens when they make their first sale.
Yeah.
And once they make their first sale, it's kind of like proof in the pudding for them. They're like, oh, wow, it works. But beyond that point, the two other factors is really just like that time delay, right? Like you want to be able to make sure that someone can actually get you the results without it taking 6 months, right? Without it taking 12 months, let's say, for example. And the other last part is just how much effort, how much, sacrifice is required from your end to put into that.
Yeah.
Right? Some people like the idea of passive income. Yes, passive income does exist, but there is a certain point where you actually have to be involved with the execution yourself.
Yeah.
And so you can't have this idea that, oh, I'm going to hand it off to someone else and it's going to be all fine and dandy. It doesn't really work that way. It's whether it's e-commerce, whether it's running ads, it's a two-way street.
Yeah. So what do you recommend people who want to get started with your stuff? How much time do they need to invest, or what are you kind of communicating up front there, right?
Yeah. So for a lot of people, the biggest question that we'll always get is like time. Like how much time do I need?
Exactly.
The main demographic in which we always kind of cater to is going to be the 9-to-5er. They're going to have kids, let's say, for example. So really the time allotment is between like 7 to 10 hours a week on average that we've seen from a lot of people. Now, from my perspective, the reason why the program is a lot more hands-on, it's a lot more of a mentorship rather than just watching pre-recorded video training.
Yeah.
It allows them to be able to not need so much time, but rather just because they have the right information, it accelerates their kind of process to be able to get results. So people do allocate 7 hours a week, let's say, but truthfully, it's about inputs and outputs. And the more they put in, when they see they're getting more out of it, obviously they allocate more time after that.
Yeah. I mean, so I want to dive a little bit deeper into the guarantee, right? So your guarantee is, you have a 90-day, pretty much no questions asked guarantee if you finish the video course.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that? Because did you look at competitors and did you try something new? Because most people, they have all these conditions. Like, hey, you need to do this. You need to invest this much money in inventory, right? But so how did you come up with this guarantee, or what was your thought process there?
Because so many people have been absolutely ripped off by these little stipulations and contracts and little things that nick them that they can't then qualify for the guarantee. So coming up with this was just basically my way of saying, okay, like sometimes people feel like they're afraid to invest inside of the mentorship program, which is fair. They feel like it's a little bit of a gamble. Yeah. And to be clear, like obviously because these are 9-to-5ers, they're not so financially conditioned. They're not used to making big investments like this might be. So I offered that way as kind of a way to be able to know like it's risk-free. But me coming up with this is because I didn't have this in the beginning of me running my program. Yeah. I didn't have a guarantee because I didn't know what I taught actually worked. Mm-hmm. It was only until I had a consistent flow of people coming into the program and I started to realize myself, along with my assistant coach, that people are consistently reaching, let's say, about $10,000 to $15,000 in sales within their first 30 days. Right? Yep. Then beyond that point, things obviously start to pick up after that. So only once we've noticed that there's like consistently on 3 months average of all our students coming in, they get to $10,000 to $15,000 in sales in 30 days, then we know we can be able to offer a guarantee. Yeah. Right? But it's only because I tested the process first before I ever actually offered a guarantee.
Yeah, so it's actually quite scientific. Like that's why I was asking, because I feel a lot of people come up with like random guarantees, right? Yeah. And then it doesn't work. But you first of all tested the time frame, and then second of all you looked around what was working. Yeah. That's cool, man. I didn't even know that was exactly your guarantee. Of course, I've checked your stuff. I didn't know that was. So I like that a lot. Like all these terms and conditions, they are a little bit tricky, although they're sometimes fair, right? Like if you don't invest money in inventory, then of course you're not going to make it. But on the other side, if I'm promising you like, hey, you're going to like it and it's going to work for you, and you watch 5 hours of videos and you're like, oh my God, they sold me some garbage and I don't even want to do this, then I guess that's also bad. And that means the salesperson is kind of sleazy. And then, you should not have to continue there. So I think that also keeps the salespeople honest. And that's where I also want to take the conversation next. How many salespeople you have now? One guy?
So right now we brought it down to one other sales rep that we have.
Yeah. And you're also doing the calls yourself, right?
Correct. Yes.
So do you feel like your guarantee is helping a lot of people take the leap? Or is it just like for a few doubters who that?
I mean, it's kind of 50-50. A lot of people love the guarantee. They're like, the guarantee is what allowed me to be able to come into the program. But beyond that point,
that's a lot 50-50. It's like, so 50% of people actually cares about the guarantee enough to mention it.
Yeah, I mean, like, which is fair, right?
Yeah.
Because in today's, economy of e-commerce coaching, education companies and whatnot, they're skeptical. They don't want to lose 100%. Their money, right? And that's hard-earned money that they're putting towards something that, can potentially work out for them. They want to be able to make sure that there's no risk of them losing that money.
Yeah.
And for us on the sales side of things, like, it helps mitigate as many objections in terms of price as we possibly can. But the other perspective is that we do have a lot of value inside of the program, and the price in which our program is actually priced at, there's a lot of value in exchange for what they're actually paying, right? Truthfully, other e-commerce coaching programs or education companies, they're going to be charging 10, 15K up front.
Yeah.
We're a fraction of $15,000 on a one-time fee basis.
Yeah. Got it. Just make sure for the viewers, like, so you help people sell on Amazon.
Yeah.
We talk about details in your backstory at the end of the podcast. But yeah, if we talk about sales, what are the other objections that you're getting? Like, so, 50% of them kind of get dealt with the guarantee. And what's the other thing that you hear or see a lot in your sales calls?
So it's actually pretty funny because over the last 4 years of me doing this, the objections have actually changed, which is really weird.
Let's actually talk about that and go through the whole process, because this is super interesting.
Exactly. So to preface for any of the viewers as well, like, I never started running ads until about 9 months ago. So I never ran advertisements. I never ran Facebook ads, Instagram ads, YouTube ads, whatnot. I was solely focused on organic because that's just where I built a majority of my following. And a lot of the people will come to me from organic, which is good. But I was kind of spoiled in that sense just because they're organic content. They're very, very warmed up. They see the stories. They see all my posts. So the objections were actually on a minimal perspective when it comes to actually my warm audience coming to the sales calls.
Yeah.
And they were mostly around the ideas of like, hey, can you explain me the technical side of things? Can you explain to me how returns work? Can you explain to me what the profit margins are like?
Yeah.
Can you run me through a little bit of product research analysis? Like a lot more, higher end questions rather
sophisticated.
Exactly. Yeah. So as I started to, run ads to cold audiences, I got hit with a fucking brick. Like I was not expecting the objections that we received, and we had to adjust on the sales side. So right now, the most common objections, if I kind of list them out in 4 different parts, is going to be one, obviously, how much time do I need?
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't afford it. It's just not the right time in terms of my funds right now.
Yeah.
Third is going to be I need to speak with my partner, right? So having the ability to actually speak with a husband, wife, business partner, if any. And then last to that is going to be something along the lines of like, obviously the trust aspect, right? Like, I'm too skeptical. I've seen this happen before. I don't want to jump into it. So those are kind of like the 4 main objections which we receive right now.
Yeah. Cool. And if we're talking about the funds, what do you recommend them? Like, where are you like, hey, listen, this is really not a good fit? And when it's like, hey, man, you have a good situation, just go through the course in the upcoming couple of months, save up $500 or whatever per month. Like, where do you draw the line in terms of like finances and funds?
Yeah, I mean, look, we do offer a payment plan. If they cannot meet the first installment of the payment plan, and then likelihood of not meeting the second installment of the payment plan, it's not worth it. Right?
Yeah.
I do have a school community, so that's $47 a month that they can be able to allocate towards that, which is a lot more feasible.
Yeah.
But beyond that point, like, I don't want people to put their last hard-earned dollars towards just joining the program, because yes, you still do need at a minimum $500 in working capital for inventory.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not trying to just dry up their whole entire bank account just for the sake of having them inside the program, because then they can't get the actual results that we want them to be able to get.
Got it. So you literally tell them like, hey, listen, this is the cost of the program, and this you should be able to invest per month.
Yeah, exactly. And to be clear, right? Like right now inside of our funnel, like we're very, very much vetting their financial conditions before we actually hop on a sales call, just to maximize the calendar availability and maximize, obviously, the people that we speak with. So if we recognize inside of the application they have less than $2,000 in income, we ask them the question if they do have the funds available to invest. If they say they have less than 2K and they do have the funds available to invest, we give them a call right away. And we try to get better understanding in regards to like, what exactly do you mean by that? And part of it might actually be like, we walk through the math with them, right? I'll bust out a whiteboard and I'll jot down, what is their income? What is their expenses? How much are they left with at the end of every single month? How much are they saving? So just kind of like doing the math with them to kind of forecast when they could come into this, or if it's just a smokescreen, I don't have the funds, that might just also be a smokescreen that people provide.
Yeah, got it. And I guess another one that's kind of hard to deal with, that's what I hear from a lot of people who are doing any coaching consulting, is whether they believe enough in themselves to invest the time, right? I mean, I see you already smiling a little bit. So can you tell me a little bit more how you deal with that? Because that's for a lot of people that are watching, that are selling coaches, coaching, all that stuff. It's like, okay, you know how much time you need to invest every week. You've bought a couple of courses, but you didn't follow up. Or you didn't actually watch the videos. You didn't put in the time. Right? And then it's like, I love what you're doing, but I'm just a little bit busy right now. And, I just got a kid, or, I just started this new thing. So I'm not sure if I can actually invest the time. What is your response there? Or like,
So my response to that, I mean, look, like everyone does have the time available. I can kind of say that, but to go a little bit deeper, like, look, it's never going to be the right time for you to get into something. It will never, because, when people finish a call with us, then they're going to drive their kids to soccer practice, and then they're going to have to go do groceries, and then laundry is going to come up, and then, bills are going to come up, and then meetings with different types of other people. So it's never going to be the right time unless you actually make the time. And the important aspect to that is when it comes to their confidence levels, well, the way in which we build our program is we're very structured. We're very organized. So we give people weekly schedules. We give people day-to-day checklists.
Like a one-on-one coach does that with them?
Exactly. Right. So I am the head coach for every single one of the students, but they also have an assistant coach. So I'm in charge of taking all the one-on-one calls with the students, but the assistant coach is there if ever they need a little bit more of like a quick question. They can always ask within our Slack community, right? So they can always ask questions through that. But we give them a weekly schedule. We give them a day-to-day workflow. We build them out SOPs, copy and paste scripts, templates, all these different things to make it really, really easy for them to execute, because when they have everything laid out perfectly in a step-by-step outline, their confidence actually builds up a lot higher, because they say, as long as I follow these instructions, I should be good to go. Because if 511 other people have been able to do this, well, why can't I do this? Right? So that's kind of where I go about when they say I don't have the time. Like, why is it not the right time to put yourself in a better financial position? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, got it. So you started with organic.
Yeah.
That kind of organically happened. Did you at some point like really start looking into it, like, hey, how to grow on social and how to get more views, or did that kind of came natural to you, or like how did you grow your brand?
I mean, I never came on social media with the intent of going viral. I found virality to be something that's kind of, I guess you can say, useless to a certain extent, just because views cannot always be translated into actual, into an actual monetary value.
Yeah.
So I just focused a lot more on resonating, right? I focused a lot more on actually identifying who is the person that I'm trying to help and speaking exactly directly to them, right?
Yeah.
Sure, my content might only get 500 views, right? But that might appeal to 5 people that want to book in a call with me.
Yeah.
So I really focused on resonating a lot of the time, and organically. Obviously, I did invest in different mentors that taught me how to grow organically, that were really, really helpful, and that kind of set the frame in terms of my content scheduling. How to actually market to an organic audience, and then I primarily only focused on Instagram, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not really so relevant on TikTok or YouTube Shorts.
Got it. So you start with organic. Then you transitioned into ads.
Yeah.
I'm curious how that, you already mentioned a little bit, but how was that process for you? Like, what were kind of like the steps or the things that you had to explore / discover / figure out to make ads work?
It wasn't until I started to realize, like, organically, we consistently did $100,000 every single month, right?
Yeah.
And that was sustained for a good period of time. But then things started to drop, right? So I didn't necessarily execute differently on my content. I just recognized that there was a shift in which maybe I could have potentially fully maxed out my organic audience, is what I thought. So that's when I began to look a little bit more into, different sources to generate leads, different ways in which I can actually generate income. And that's when ads came up, right? And, when you search ads, all the other advertisements in terms of how to run Facebook ads come about. And, I did stumble across Jeremy Haynes's, 19 free things that you can be able to download. And that's what really got me into the advertising world and wanted to learn more about Facebook ads.
Got it. So then, I think you followed Jeremy's framework then when you started out. And then you started booking your first calls, right? Was your show up rate immediately good, or what happened there?
It was a big adjustment because organically speaking, I didn't have a CRM. I didn't have proper payment processors. I didn't have, integrations. I didn't have Calendly automations. I didn't have, what the most important things are that a lot of marketers have in place right now. I didn't have those.
Yeah.
So I went into like my first couple of weeks. I'm like, hey, why is my show up rate like 20%? Because going from organic, you're like at an 80% show up rate. And then you're like cold audience. For me, it was like 20%. I'm like, why? And then Jeremy obviously, hounded me for different types of things to not have in place. So that's when I built out proper, automations, proper follow-up sequences, text reminders, and all those different types of things that helped boost the show-up rate. And now, since we've been running ads for the last 9 months, we've consistently been able to average about 50 to 55% show-up rate.
What was the biggest lever that you pulled to get that show-up rate up?
Speed to lead. Just the faster you communicate when someone submits an application, connection rate is a lot higher. Right?
Yeah, so you guys are calling them?
Yeah,
or
so we utilize Close CRM as our way to be able to kind of text them and double dial them the moment that they submit an application.
Yep.
And that just gives us a little bit more of a personalized touch, right? And this is something that, of course, Jeremy does talk about in terms of obviously trying to be able to build that connection to increase the show-up rate. And in that initial call, we just get to know them, right? I'm a relatively personable individual, very friendly. Same thing with the other closer as well. And we just try to be able to connect with them, see where they're coming from, see how we can prepare for the sales call as best as we possibly can to give them as much value. And by doing so, what ends up happening is, show-up rate has been able to exponentially increase from that 20%.
Got it. And then people show up on the call. How is your, maybe you don't know the exact numbers, but how much people are you actually closing on the call versus like follow-up?
Yeah. So I can answer this in two parts. So over the last 2 months, we've been consistently closing at 30 to 33%. If I were to look at, the first, let's say 6 months when I had me, myself, and 2 other closers, closing percentage was about like 15 to 18%.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought that my number one priority when running ads was calendar availability, right? To have as much calendar space as we possibly can. And I felt like we can't do that with 2 closers. So I onboarded 2 other closers as well, which put us at 4 total closers. But then our closing percentage just shat the bed. Our closing percentage decreased significantly. So that's why it's about 15 to 18%. So I slashed out the sales team. I kept it to my one closer that's been with me for 2.5 years, which, truth be told, he was actually one of my first students that I started working with.
That's cool. Yeah.
He built his own Amazon business as well. And now it's just me and him. All my time, all my energy gets focused on one closer and one closer only. And we've been hitting our all-time records with our closing percentage.
Nice. But most people close on the call, or you also have like a proper follow-up?
So if, let's say, for example, we try to get most people to close on a call, right? So we do run kind of like a fast action price discount, right? It's not necessarily to kind of promote like this fake imagination, scarcity, or anything of that nature. We only have 5 spots left when we don't limit any spots. It's just really because for us, action is a sole indicator that someone's going to be successful in the program, right?
Yeah.
And we reward people for that, right? So if they see that there's value in the program and they invest on the call, whether it's a payment plan, whether it's a one-time fee, we give them a significant discount, right? We give them $1,000 off if they were to pay a one-time fee from the original price if they actually join with us on the call. So I would say about 60% of the people that we do have on a call will end up actually closing on that. Then the rest of them get followed up with.
Got it. And then you just send a bunch of content, you schedule on a call. Well, what does that look like?
Yeah. So beyond that point, like it's a lot. This is probably the hardest thing that we have struggled with.
Yeah.
Is the follow-up process, is how to not be so selfish with the follow-ups. Like, yeah, we want to be able to close them, but how can we give something to them that's going to be of value for them to a point where they feel like they owe us something?
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of like hard to do because it is a long-term game sometimes, right? If people don't join on the call, sometimes they're not going to join immediately the day after. It's going to take maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month, right? I've had people where I followed up with them for 2 years, right? From my organic content. They're like, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a long-term game, and that's the hardest part.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's 2.5 years. That's intense.
Yeah.
What happened there?
That shocked me in all honesty, but at the end of the day, take it when it comes.
Nice. That's cool. So right now you're running ads, you have your organic. What's your next step? Like, how far do you want to push this? Like, what's your goal with your Amazon? I mean, let's get started there. What's your goal with your Amazon coaching business? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be in a year from now?
Yeah. Really, I ideally want to get to a point where we're earning consistently like $300,000 to $400,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So what that looks like is about 25 to 30 people on a monthly basis coming into the program.
Yeah.
Right now, we're currently fluctuating between 100K at most 170K per month in revenue. So that's honestly my primary goal in where I want to take this coaching program. But with that, I have thought about other things that I do want to be able to put my time towards, and what I felt like my passion has become very, very strong for, which is building businesses and teaching other people how to build an education company.
Yeah.
Which is only going to come out in a year's time. It's taken time for me to be able to build something like that.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. So now we kind of went over the sales and marketing and business stuff. That's for everybody who was just here for marketing nuggets. Then now we're gonna go a little bit in your backstory, which is also cool. So let's go there a little bit. Like, how did you initially get started, and take us way back to like the first moment that you're like, maybe I can do something online, maybe I can make money online, and how did that journey meander to where you're at right now?
Yeah, so to be clear, I'll take you guys a lot further back. Growing up, I was in a special school that I was focused on becoming a professional golfer. So I would go to school from 8 to 12 p.m., so 8 a.m. in the morning to 12 p.m., and then from 1 to 5, Monday through Friday, I just played golf. Every single day.
I'm happy that we're not playing golf.
So
I didn't know this stuff.
We were supposed to, but so what ended up happening is I got to the point of being a semi-professional junior, and for me, I kind of fell out of love with it.
Yeah.
But that kind of built my resilience in regards to consistency, in regards to discipline, because golf is a one-man game. Yeah. It's not like you got a team with you. It's not like you got anybody else that's going to influence whether or not you do good or bad. It's all on you.
Yeah.
So, hitting 100 putts on a putting green, for 2 hours straight, that requires discipline, right? And coming back the same day, after that, doing the same exact thing, it requires a lot of consistency. So it kind of built my mental resilience in regards to doing the hard stuff. Mm-hmm. And then after I stopped golfing, I followed along with the regular process. I got a job as a valet, and I was studying university. I decided, let me go to college. After I went to college, I went to university. I live in Canada. That's why we have college and university. And I studied to be in finance. I wanted to major in finance.
Investment banker, or what did you want to do?
No idea. That's the best part.
Okay.
I want to be a finance bro.
Finance bro. Put a Patagonia vest on, yeah.
Exactly. So from that perspective, what ended up happening is in 2020, I had about 2 semesters left in university to graduate in finance, and then the pandemic hit. So when the pandemic hit, I was still living at home. Obviously, a valet is a service-based business where you're required to be in touch with a lot of people. That got flown out the window, so obviously that got rid of. I got fired from that.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is I realized that, okay, so I lost my job. No one in Canada was hiring. And the situation in Canada was also really, really bad because we had curfews, so we couldn't stay out after 8 p.m. Every single night, and all the gyms were closed, all the schools were closed. So I started to kind of gain resentment because I was paying the same tuition to my university, but I got recycled videos from like 2008. Right? So I'm still supposed to get the same level of education, pay the same price, but from a stupid video. That kind of pissed me off a little bit. And I thought during the pandemic, like, hey, what was the one thing that was continuously going while everything stopped? That was Amazon, right? So from my perspective, that opened my eyes. I'm like, I'm buying products off of Amazon almost every second day during the pandemic, just because I was bored. I bought a whole bunch of different video games. You know, I bought a PS4 at that time. I was just, you know what? Let me buy anything.
You were not making any money? You were like, oh, let me buy a PS4?
Well, because also to that perspective, we were on stimulus checks, right?
Yeah,
so I thought the government was giving me free money. I was like, oh, this is so cool, $2,000 a month.
Oh, my God.
And, you know, I had a real broke mentality back then. And what ended up happening is I thought, you know what? Let me look into this. I know it's super duper cliche, but I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was my first book I ever read, and just changed my whole perspective. You know, chapter 1, the rich don't work for money. And what ended up happening is, you know what? I started my Amazon business. Now, full disclaimer, I did buy a course before getting into it. It was
Let's
about
not mention their name and give them
$297. Yeah, I got nothing out of it. It kind of put a sour taste in my mouth in regards to like e-commerce and coaching and gurus, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I dropped out of school. I have no job.
And 2 semesters, that's like a year, right?
Yeah.
You have one more
that's
year
not left. Not even. Yeah. So I had not a lot of time, and still living under my parents' roof, you know, when they obviously are expecting me to graduate, they were not happy.
No, I can't imagine.
You know, you go to your parents and say, hey, I'm going to do this online thing. They're obviously, you know, looking like you got a third eyeball. But from that perspective, I, you know, started to dedicate a lot more time towards it. And that's when things just started to pick up. I remember my first sale from my Amazon business was a Swell bottle brush cleaner. And then I just started to make more and more money. The first month I made $10,000 in sales. 3 months was $50K. 7 months was $100,000. And this month we're on pace for a little bit over $3 million. So I'm happy with that. This year, we're on pace for a little bit over $3 million.
Nice. That's... So you're still selling on Amazon. That's also pretty good.
Still selling on Amazon, but it's a lot more in the background.
Yeah.
Right? Like I do have a team of VAs that run it for me.
Yeah.
I do have a lot more systems, a lot more integration in place for the Amazon business, so that way I don't have to be so involved.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like coaching is my number one priority. Right. Like,
yeah.
511 students is not easy to handle.
Yeah, exactly. I think, by the way, that's something that I always find interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but people are sometimes like, yeah, so why are you coaching? And of course, there's a whole, it feels good to coach people. But the other thing is, like, if you're selling on Amazon, then, you know, there's also a lot of smaller products that have a lot of potential, right? And if someone makes an extra 1, 2, 3K per month, they're super happy with that, right? But if you already scaled your own business, right, and you're doing, let's say, the 100K, now you're at 300K a month with Amazon, it doesn't really make sense for you, or it's like a pain in the ass to have like 100 products that you all sell for 2, 3K per month, right? So, or how do you look at that? Like, I feel there's always, like, when you're getting started, there's potential in the smaller products, the niche, like, you're not making a crazy amount of money, and the big guys don't want to compete in there. How do you think about that?
So a lot of people ask me the question, like, hey, why do you coach? You know, it's
which is fun, by the way. It can be fulfilling.
That's, I mean, look, like, honestly, money is great. Don't get me wrong. But like when you have people taking their families on vacation, buying new cars, paying off their credit card bills, like, that's very, very fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
Like that develops my purpose as to why I do this. And in terms of how we build the storefronts, we do it in a very strategic way. So, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but there's 901 million products sold on Amazon as of August 2024. Right? So there's a lot of opportunity. Saturation does not exist, right? Saturation, when people say Amazon's too saturated, that's just a mental frame that they have a problem with. It's not actual what it's like to sell on Amazon. So we have something called the 70-30 rule. So the 70-30 rule is basically a rule that I developed that says 70% of the products you list are going to be listed in major categories: home and kitchen, sports and outdoors, tools and home improvement, office supplies, let's say. Just the products that people buy day in and day out, no matter what happens with the world or the economy. So the other 30% is going to be focused on seasonal products. Right now, we're about October 16th, let's say, for example. Halloween's coming up. Right? So we're going to kind of leverage Halloween products. Right? When Christmas comes up, we leverage Christmas products as well. So that way is kind of their hedge, I guess you can say, to not put all their eggs in one basket. Because when you put all your eggs in one basket, much like in traditional investing, right, you're exposing yourself to a lot of risk. It's the same exact concept with an Amazon business. If you only focus on one niche, you will not make a lot of sales, and you will run the risk of being, pushed out by a lot of the other competition.
Yep.
So diversify yourself, and especially because we drop ship, it doesn't cost us anything to list an item on the Amazon Marketplace. So if you list an item and it doesn't sell, you lose nothing. No money is going to come out of your pocket. So why not just list as many different products as you possibly can? And only once they sell, then that's when you're going to be required to actually pay money. But, customer paid 100, you're only going to pay 50.
Yeah.
And the difference is your net profit. So that's kind of how we build out the storefronts. And then, we kind of go from like quality to quantity, right? So we shoot as many different things against the wall, see what sticks. And then once we see what sticks, we double down our efforts on the data things that we know have sold the most consistently over the last 3 months, let's say, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're selling in the US or?
Canadian marketplace.
So when people sign up, they're mainly from Canada or they're also from the US and you help them sell in the US or Canada, or how does that work?
Predominantly, we actually work with a lot of people that are from the US.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was a lot of people from Canada.
Yeah, right? Makes sense.
Just because organically I put my location to Canada, so I had a lot of Canadians come into play. And what ends up happening is, obviously, US is a very, very big marketplace. So yes, we utilize my expertise in terms of selling on Amazon, the Canadian marketplace. I do have, there are universal tactics that work from Canada to UK to Mexico, let's say, for example. But the assistant coach, he has his Amazon store running on the US marketplace as well that does about $100,000 per month.
Yep.
So he has them, like all our students has them as a resource that they can utilize as well for US marketplace specific expertise.
Got it. And your coach is doing 100K a month. How many products is he selling?
I mean, in terms of the number of products, it's hard to kind of actually put a number.
I mean,
on
is it like 5? Is it 100? Is it 1?
No, it's usually definitely over 1,000 products, right? There's about over 1,000 products active in their inventory. Like right now, I have a little bit over 6,100 products in my inventory. Mm-hmm. But it's just because, again, like it's not 6,100 products that I bought before they actually sold. It's 6,100 opportunities I'm putting out there to see if I can actually make $1 from it.
Got it. And if you look at the 20/80 rule, like how many of those are like selling?
I mean, usually from the perspective of how many of them actually sell, I would say roughly about like 30% of them will sell, but that 30%, it can differ from different prices. It can differ from different product categories. So, majority of the time it could be high ticket items. So anything that's $850 and above. Mm-hmm. I try to not go so much towards low ticket items just because there's a lot more competition there, right? So I can be able to I only have like $8 margins rather than high ticket. I can have $100
sure, you're doing
profit. Let's
high
say.
ticket, drop shipping,
exactly.
Amazon. Okay, cool. Makes sense. And is that also something that people gravitate towards where they're like, okay, I'm not going to be selling the little, pancake flipper or like because I guess everybody has seen there was this guy who was running an ad and he's just showing really like cheap products. He's like, this is product X. You can sell it for this and you can make $10. So people have tried it and they're kind of tired. And then when you tell them about more high ticket stuff, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or how does that work?
Well, it really depends on the budget though. That's the thing, right? Because if someone has a lower tiered budget, right? So sometimes I will work with university students. They don't have all the money in the world to work with, and that's okay, right? So if they have like $500 to work with, it doesn't make sense for them to have a high ticket store just because that's going to encompass one item on a 30-day perspective rather than having, 50 different items that can sell on a 30-day timeline, which then means that we can have higher opportunity to get a positive feedback for the storefront on Amazon, which boosts us higher in the search algorithm, helps us make more sales in the long term.
Got it. And are you mainly focusing on things that are proved to work, or are you also working with like, new stuff like fidget spinners or whatever?
Right. We like to focus on things that work. But if ever I'm testing different things or I want to test different things, I test it on my store first or on the assistant coach's store first, see if it works, if it's viable, and if it does, then we relay it back to everyone inside of the program.
Got it. Yeah, that's always what I liked a lot, like about selling on Amazon. It's like you can carve out your little mini niche within a niche that's already working. So it's not as like crazy as like, hey, I'm gonna invent this new automatic toilet brush, and then you will spend a bunch of money, and then it doesn't work, and then you're just done.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess like if you're selling that many products, there's also a lot of automations going on in the back end to not work 24/7 like a robot. Are you using also Zapier like we use with marketing, or what kind of stuff is going on in the background?
So one thing that really, really amazed me when I came into like the running ad space and the marketing space is how many automations there are. And I really suck at Zapier. Like I really, really suck at it, like, integrating it with your CRM and, when a new app is submitted and all that stuff. So in terms of an Amazon business, what's really, really helpful is you can actually integrate your supplier API with the Amazon API. Mm-hmm. So what that means is if you were to buy a product from my Amazon store, if I have that integration set up, your shipping info gets sent directly to the supplier's website.
Yep.
Right. So you basically bought the product directly from the supplier, but you don't know that. So you paid $100. The supplier is getting a notification that, hey, Robin just bought something for $50. So they're going to utilize my credit card, process the order, but they're going to ship it directly to your house because they're utilizing your shipping info. Right? So there's that side to automate the redundant tasks of things. So that's kind of like where the system software has come into play. We don't use Zapier so much. We use it kind of just to like auto-populate Google Sheets, not complex like it were to be for ads, let's say, for example.
Yeah.
The other side to it in terms of automation is obviously building out a team, right? Virtual assistants, having a proper team in place that can help you scale to a higher level. And that's where really things kind of, you have to become like a leader. You have to understand how to build out SOPs, training documents and whatnot.
You are hiring VAs from the Philippines, or where are you hiring?
Yeah, so primarily I do like VAs from the Philippines more. Onlinejobs.ph is probably like the best source for VAs from the Philippines. Besides that, you could go to Upwork. It's just you have to be very specific with obviously who you're hiring from Upwork. Make sure they have relevant experience and whatnot. But based on my personal experience, I do prefer Filipino VAs.
And what is your process to filter out the good ones?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a 3-step process. Again, like this is also something that I teach to all my students is how to actually automate through systems and different VAs building and whatnot.
Yeah.
First, I obviously want to put out a generic posting, right? So a generic job posting, just saying, this is what's required. These are the tasks that you have to do. And then I'll input screening questions. So the screening questions will be making sure that they have relevant experience with a specific task that's involved with Amazon, let's say. So I'll say, like, if this scenario happens, how would you handle it, right? If this product has a BSR of 100,000, let's say, for example, would you sell this product? Just to see, like,
you're really asking literally this.
So very, very
question.
contextual questions, just because I need to understand, like, do they know what they're talking about or do they not know what they're talking about? And by doing that, it allows me to gauge, okay, I'll get 50 applicants. I'll go through those 3 questions. And if I go through those 3 questions, usually 5 to 7 of them will be really, really good.
Yeah.
After I see that there's 5 to 7, I'll then invite them to a Zoom meeting. So I'll get to speak to them. For me, priority is ensuring that they're always on time, ensuring that they have their camera on. So I'm not just speaking to a blank Zoom face, let's say, for example. And their English is relatively fluent. And then also just trying to gain their perspective in regards to the language that they use that's pertaining to Amazon specifically. Right? So sometimes there's certain things that we utilize to describe a certain task or describe a certain metric. If they can allude to those things, then that allows me to know that they do have
Amazon vocabulary.
Yeah.
Got it. And after you do the Zoom interview, like, I guess you pick 1 or 2 out of 5.
So after that, like I'll always have a notepad behind me or on the side of me, and I'll just kind of write little notes, and I'll say, you know what, this is good, and I'll kind of, after I go through about a week of different calls, I'll just rank them, right? And I'll say, why is this one better than this one? Why is that one better than that one? And then process of elimination, right? But I do always keep them in my back pocket if I don't decide to choose someone, right? And it's the same concept like on the marketing side. If I don't decide to choose a closer, I always keep them in my back pocket. Same thing with the setter. I'll always keep them in my back pocket. If in case one of the people decides to leave, I can easily go to my next best option.
Yeah.
Right.
So you write that down so you can easily reach out. Yeah,
exactly.
Cool. Got it. A little bit of a random mindset question. You're from Canada.
Yeah.
You're in Miami right now. You're in the US. How do you feel Canada is different from the US?
Oh boy. It's going to piss a lot of people off.
That's why we're here.
Exactly. Canada, from my perspective and based on my personalized experience, is very, very small-minded. Right. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I'm not trying to get political here by any means necessary, but the current government we do have in place kind of encourages very broke mentality, I guess you can say, or just certain factors that keep people in a position in where they are right now.
Yeah.
Rather than when you come to places like Miami, when you're surrounded in places like Brickell, let's say, for example, hustle and bustle, you see the flashy lifestyles. It's a different mindset, and it puts you in a different environment. So when I'm in Canada, like, yes, I do feel motivated, right? But when I'm in Miami, I'm like, I feel 10 times more motivated, right? Because at the end of the day, you are a product of your environment. And I feel like the people here in Miami, although it's very, very flashy, there's also a certain extent in which there's a lot of grit behind it. There's a lot of hustle behind these people. Rather than in Canada, I feel like a lot of people are just kind of more lackadaisical, I guess you can say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was my kind of follow-up question. You alluded to it already a little bit. You go to Miami to get more motivated. What are other things that you kind of do to un-Canada yourself? Like what are you doing? Like how you're making sure that you don't get stuck? Because that's what I felt sometimes. Like if you go back, like it still rubs off on you a little bit. Like even if you're not aware, if you're not super aware, like you're like, oh damn, what happened to me? I sound like a Canadian, or like you know. Yeah. So what are you doing to offset that?
Well, firstly, I try to stop saying "a" so much. So that kind of eliminates the Canadian factor from me. But besides that, like, look, I'll be honest with you. I never actually shared this with anyone, but about like 2.5 years ago, I remember the exact moment where I was like, I had $326,000 in my bank account, just sitting there. I didn't have any investments. I was like, I'm chilling. Like, I'm good.
I'm the shit.
I'm fine. And then shit hit the fan real fast. And then I'm like, how did I get to $15,000? Like, where did my money go?
Yeah.
And I told that story to Jeremy, and Jeremy gave me the most intense 30-minute session that I've ever had in my whole entire life. Like, I was on the brink of like breaking down in tears just because he really was so real with me and shifted a lot of things that I didn't know I had to do in order for me to be able to never get in a position where I'm like, I'm just okay, right? Like I'm remaining in the same position. So part of that is what what I've learned to do is never keep a high amount of money in my bank account. Like, yes, have savings, but in a liquid checking account, don't just keep it all there because you're going to think that you're good, right? Like, I have this amount of money in my bank account, I'm fine. Usually I like to never let it go above a certain number just because I can continuously feel motivated, right?
Yeah.
I'm not giving myself that gratification and saying like, yeah, I've made this money now, I'm good. So there's one part to that. And then the other part to it is like always just continuously investing and being surrounded with different people, right? Like investing in the mastermind, right? Like taking different trips to different places, taking, different risks in terms of things with health, right? Hiring different people to help me push me in different places with my mindset. Those things, when I continuously invest in myself, they're super duper uncomfortable, but they help me never feel like I'm stuck in the same place. And that kind of encourages me to just work my ass off a lot harder.
Yeah. And, you didn't finish university, but then you figured out the Amazon thing. You helped other people how to start with Amazon. And at the same time, you also met a girlfriend. You have a girlfriend now, right?
Yes, I do.
I'm curious, like, did you meet her when you were still in your parents' basement, or how did that go?
Well, actually, we've been together for 10.5 years.
Yeah, and that's what I was remembering, thinking. So how was it to be a man, to tell her, like, hey, I'm going to stop university. I'm not going to be a Patagonia finance bro. I'm going to do this online thing while still living at your parents. So it was not like you were living the life. Like, how was that for the relationship?
Yeah. So we first met, I was 15, she was 14. That's when we first met. And it's so weird because obviously, Sophia, if you're watching this, and I mean it with 110%, everything inside of me, I would not be where I am today without her in my life. And it's strange because who we were when we first met is not who we are right now. So I say this, but it doesn't mean that we didn't have very, very rough patches that we went through, right?
Yeah.
Like transitioning from the point of view of like, okay, yeah, like 9 to 5, I'm done work, like let's chill. And then like, we're good to go. And then we spend the weekends together to now like maybe 1 or 2 days we do have together, right? But I'm always still checking my phone. I'm always still replying to messages. So it did put a lot of strain on our relationship. But that really allowed me to find the reason as to why I'm doing this, right? Like a woman like her is very, very hard to find in today's day and age. Like she does do a lot of stuff for me that makes me, make my days go a lot easier. She preps my meals for me. She'll, clean the house. She'll do certain things with errands, right? To kind of take away as much burden on my shoulders about other things. She'll do them for me so that way I can have as much focus on my actual business. Yeah. And props to her because she actually does have her own personal brand as well.
Yeah.
So as we started to navigate this whole entrepreneurial journey, like it was hard because like there was a lot of doubts, right? There's a lot of doubts in regards to like, maybe, like, am I doing this correctly? Maybe we should just stick to the safe route of doing everything. But she was always there in my corner, just fucking pushing me. She was always pushing me. And, entrepreneurship, like you're going to have a lot of imposter syndrome. You're going to have a lot of factors of like, why am I doing this? Like, am I doing this actually working? She was always there by my side. And I feel like everyone always needs that type of person to kind of, see a vision or see a version of you that you don't see in yourself. That usually comes from a significant other. And it's just 10 and a half years later, like, I'm extremely grateful for her.
Yeah. When did she start building her personal brand? Like what was the...
She started building her personal brand, I would say about 2.5 years ago, right? She's very much into the fitness space. She's very much into the realm of, health, wellness. And she actually worked for free for about like a year before she started working with her dream company. So she was buying products on her own. She was promoting products on her own dime, booking photo shoots. And she did work for free for a year. And then they finally recognized her and gave her the opportunity. And now she's in a full-time position with them, which is absolutely amazing. But I think she also learned a lot from me in the sense of like, you got to maintain consistency. Yeah. And I try to be the same person that she was to me as I was building my process.
Got it. And now she's, I would say, digital creator, I guess.
I guess you can say that. Yeah. She's a digital creator. She's a model. She's an athlete. She has a considerable amount of Instagram followers. So yeah, she's doing really well for herself.
Did that ever mess with you when you saw her like grow and get so much attention?
Nah, man. I mean, honestly, like there's a lot of insecure men that are like, oh, I don't want guys going inside of your inbox and all this shit.
Oh my God, like, I don't even want to know about their inbox.
Yeah, you don't want to know about the inbox. But there's honestly like, I didn't care because I knew that that's when she was doing something really, really right. Right. Like, the following is increasing. The fuck boys are kind of leaving stupid ass comments underneath her pics and stuff like that. So like I started to kind of recognize, okay, like keep going, like this is good. I don't care. And it's also because like I have so much trust in our relationship and confidence in our relationship that, she came down to Miami for like a 2-day weekend getaway, right? Everyone was like, oh my God, are you guys okay? Like, are you guys on a break? I'm like, no, man, she's just going to chill at a hotel. Like, it's fine. She can do what she wants. Go do some puppy yoga and all that stuff. You do you.
Puppy yoga. Oh. That's cool, man. Yeah, I mean, I like how you immediately reframed it. Like, hey, if the fuckboys are posting comments and if you see stuff happening, that means, she's going viral. She's getting attention. So she's growing. Like that's hilarious. That's a good way to look at it. So if you're a female content creator, that is going to happen. Yeah, I mean, I guess the trust is also a little bit easier in a way that, like, you have been together so long. I have the same with my girlfriend. Like, I lived at her parents when I was broke for, like, 9 months. And our first holiday together in Italy, she paid for me. So I'm like, yeah, she's not in it for the money because I didn't have any money. So I guess that's the same for you where you're like, hey, yeah, you know you're with each other because of the person, not the Instagram.
Yeah. I mean,
newsfeed.
It doesn't, for me, like even that in your example that you gave, right? Like she paid for you, right? Like when we were moving out of our parents' house, like, yeah, I was able to cover some stuff, but then when I lost a lot of my money, she was there. Like she held it down for a decent period of time until I can kind of like pick myself back up. And I'm extremely grateful for that because if not, then, it's very easy to think contractually when shit starts to go south.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy to go that way.
Yeah, I remember with my girlfriend, these Lime scooters?
Yes.
Where like that was her side hustle. I invested my last $3,000 in a mentor who is now a client/business partner. And then I was like, okay, we're gonna hustle with the Lime scooters just to be sure, but it was all right. But those are the dark times that you will never forget, I guess. Do you have any of those crazy, dark, sad moments that you want to share with the audience, or it's more
sad
like
moments
in general?
I mean, look, there's a lot of shit that's in general. Easily, like the hardest thing in my life that I've ever gone through is obviously like losing my childhood dog. That was like fucking the worst thing that could ever happen to me, and especially in the way in which it happened was just like gut wrenching. But besides that, I mean, like in terms of other things, you know, there's deals that went south, right? Where like I lost a $20,000 deal, right? Clients just did not like the service that they were receiving. And at the end of the day, despite the fact that they, you know, signed a contract and whatnot, things got a little bit sour between us. And, you know, that kind of really put a hole in my gut, because they pay you X amount of dollars and then 3 months later you don't have that money, but they're asking for it back. It kind of gets a little bit tight.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. You like Miami? Would you consider moving here?
I've considered it. The problem is moving from Canada to the US as a Canadian citizen, there is a lot of hoops that I have to
You mean
jump
like
through.
exit tax and all that kind of stuff?
There's exit tax, and then there's immigration lawyers that we have to deal with. That, from our perspective, me and my girlfriend really looked into this about like a year and a half ago. We wanted to move down to Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
And we had to hire an immigration lawyer, and we had to, on paper, get married within a month. We had to just sign a paper, get married almost immediately, make everything look legit, like stage a wedding and make everything look 100% aligned. And then also I had to be able to make sure that I can earn more of my money in US dollars. And then beyond that point, I had to ensure I couldn't get double taxed from the Canadian standpoint and also the US standpoint. All these hoops and holes, I mean, I'm like, you know what, fuck it.
And what about Dubai? You can do that as a Canadian, right?
Yes, you can do that.
Yeah.
Haven't looked as much into it, just because at the end of the day, like, family is also still in Canada. So I am trying to be as present as I possibly can in Canada to spend some time with the family and be present there also.
Makes sense. All right. No tax evasion, tax optimization tips here for Canadians, but we'll survive. We'll survive. Cool, man. That's a cool story with your girlfriend. And did you guys need to get married on paper or not? You guys did that?
No, we didn't end up
just
following through with
realized, oh, it's too much. It's too much.
Because we also had to convert our Canadian dollars into US dollars, which you lose about 1.5 of your purchasing power if you do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's heavy. All right. I mean, I think we're slowly getting to the end of this podcast. So I'm just going to ask you a funny question, which is still related to what we just talked about to end the podcast. If scenario X happened, what will make you feel forced to leave Canada and move to the US or Dubai? Is there anything that the Canadian government could do that will make you move immediately?
If the Canadian government actually approves 66% tax rates.
66. That's what they're thinking about.
They're working on. They've passed a bill, not officially, that allows them to tax Canadians, which I would be in that tax bracket of 66%.
Got it. So if that becomes like a fact, then you're like,
Done.
I'm out of here.
Done. And I found a way to be able to actually still live in Canada, but not pay 66% tax. Working with different lawyers and all that different types of stuff, CPAs, tax specialists have been able to help me realize that. Thankfully, obviously, it came at a dime, but if Canada actually approves that, then I'm out.
You're out of here.
Yeah, no way. I mean, who in their right mind would ever want to give 66% of their fucking money to the government? I wouldn't.
Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely.
Inspiring story also with your girlfriend and going through all of that. So thanks, man.
I appreciate it, man.